going to get started. First of all, thank you all for being here this morning. I know it's Aaron that you're here. Had nothing to do with my threatening email yesterday, guilt tripping you all to be here, I'm sure. Either way, I'm so glad you're here. We are at our last 2 weeks of this series. Next week is our last one, so put that on your calendar, make sure that you can make it. And we also have the pleasure of Joel being here to introduce our guest speaker and their team. So we're excited to have Aaron here today. I'll let Joel do the honors. And again, don't forget we have bagels and coffee in the back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everybody's here for, the glorified processor Joel. Can you hear me okay? Okay, so good old Aaron. I've had the privilege of working with Aaron for the last 4.5, 5 years. I'm not going to do him justice today, so I'm going to do my best. So do you guys think that 4,311 loans is a lot of loans? So in 5 years, since 2017 through 2022, that's how many Aaron and his team have closed. So who's good with math? Who can calculate that on a per day basis? Who would like to close? Well, does anybody want to try it? Does anybody? He works every day. Tina, it's just like you. You work every day. 2.6, I think it's 2.6, 2.3. It's at least 2 loans per day, every day of the year for 5 years. So 2017 to 2020, just let that sink in just a little bit. 2 loans a day is the average. Now, we only have 20 business days in a month, but that's every day. So Aaron's been in the business since 97. We ironically were both in the same time, and we were both 10 when we got into the business. So it's a long time. It's a long time. So, but Aaron's in the top 1% of loan originators in the United States every year. And he and his team are amazing. They do that day in and day out. And when Tina's laughing about every day, that's what Aaron does. Now you're going to hear today about how he does it, how his team does it, and how they support each other as a team. I keep saying team, but he'll admit as well as anybody that his success doesn't come without his team. Some of them are here today. So I think these 6 people right here are the only ones, but from his team, some of them came from Arizona on their own dime to support Aaron. That's what they do. Aaron's got 4 kids. He's a grandpa, old fart, but he's him and his wife Rizzo were search and rescue for 10 years. He's retired from search and rescue. Aaron travels the world, and I say world, training people how to use their credit and their assets to invest and use his team to provide financing. Aaron's one of, I don't have a lot of friends, but Aaron's one of my best friends because he is the realest, most honest people in this world. And his clients and his employees see that, and they see the value in him. So when he travels the world, they see Aaron for who he is. And so up here today, I hope you get something from him. Just listen to what he does, because he's not one of those motivational speakers that is up here talking about just BS. Get up every morning and read something positive. I mean, Aaron does that, and he types an email every morning himself and sends it to his team about what they need to do. Every morning, I read his motivational speeches, even though they're 30 seconds long. Every morning he does it. He sends it every morning. So last week I asked him yesterday where he wanted to go to lunch today, and he said, just somewhere with protein. So last week he was in the Mexico jungle, teaching people, a bunch of vegans, he said. That's why he needs some protein today. But he was in Mexico, in the jungle, teaching people, investors, how to use their assets, their income, their credit to invest in real estate. So he's the real deal. So thanks, Aaron, for coming. Let's give it up for Aaron. Yep.
Thanks, guys. I don't have any like real presentation to offer. In fact, when I was told to go, asked to go to Mexico, to this, who's seen Wild Wild Country on, so one couple in here. So it's about this guru that pretty much just convinced people he was, I don't know if he was just a reincarnated Christ or what, and people were following him into all this crazy stuff. And he had this wild cult and people start disappearing, things like that. Then he passes and this other guy decides he's a reincarnated version of this guy. So he creates this thing out in Mexico around the cenote, and it's a really cool setup, but it's also strange as hell. And I travel constantly. I'm constantly in meetings. I'm constantly speaking. I'm constantly at events or meeting the people I do business with. I do business in 28 states. And interestingly enough, I live in Arizona, but what, did like 5 loans last year in Arizona? Something like that. We don't do any business in our state. So I'm not even a competitor with anybody that lives there. So I get out there and I'm used to being in a place where I know I can get in and get out. I got there. I'm like, I have no idea how I got here. I have no idea how I'm getting out of here. So of course I kind of started to freak out a little bit for first couple minutes. And then you start to meet the people and you calm down. I started to realize, you know, everything that works for me is about the people I'm interacting with. The success that I've had is the people that I have interacted with over the years and continue to interact with. So I don't know how you guys are with your clients, but really the first thing I can possibly tell anybody is if you're doing it to pay your bills, if you're doing to put bread on the table, success will always be something you chase. But if you start learning to collect people, which is what I do, I'm a people collector. I connect with them as quickly as I can. Then you'll start to see that develop and grow and continue to expand. So it's kind of the first thing for me. And the reason I bring that up is because that's what I needed to do while I was out there. Because honestly, I look like I can take on anything, but I was freaking the hell out. Like, this is a weird ass place. I don't look like what I'm doing here. I started talking to people and then I started to meld into the environment. You don't really meld really well in a yoga retreat. At least I don't. And he wasn't kidding. It's all vegans. And they even said, we don't want any meat brought out here, no alcohol, no drugs. And they're cooking the food for you. I'm like, I get you guys are trying to keep your followers like Hindu cows. I mean, they're literally docile as all hell. And then they've got all us bulls walking around. And it's like, how are you going to try and calm us down? All they're doing is pissing us off the more you start to give us vegan shit. Right. So it was an interesting environment. I got an opportunity to speak. I did the exact same thing I'm doing here. I did not bring any presentation. I got to know the people, and then I spoke the next day as the keynote, and it was an amazing experience. So I thought the first thing that I would get into here outside of that, I was just giving you the background that Joel started here, was we're getting some really, really, really rough times. I'm sure you guys have been feeling it for the last little bit. It's a bit of an ass whooper. If you look at the leaderboard, I'm getting my ass kicked too. It does not play favorites whatsoever. So don't think that you're being singled out by the market and getting the shit kicked out of you. Every single one of us is experiencing it. So as a result of that, we need to figure out, what do we do from here? How do you grow from this? What happens for you that's going to make your life better in an environment like this? Who was in it in 2008? So a handful of us was in it in 2008. My 2008 experience was different than what your guys's was. I was in it, but I'll share that here in a little bit. The one thing that I figured out with respect to, I'm going to stop holding this damn thing. When it comes to the market and what you're experiencing in life, is the one thing I've discovered through my life is you can't learn, you can't grow, you can't expand, you can't develop until you get your ass kicked. And the way I determined that is I look all the way back to first grade, 6 years old. Who remembers first grade really well? I don't remember it real awesome, but there's one thing I do remember. My parents put me in a private school. It's a Pentecostal school, not Pentecostal. But everybody said this is a great little school. And it was a rural town in New Mexico. We'd meet at the church. And the pastor was the principal. The principal's wife was my teacher. And it had everything from first grade till 12th grade, all in one school. Graduating class of 3. You know, very, very interesting environment. They separated us first graders off from everybody else to have a little class of 5. And they started teaching us everything from letters to numbers and helping us to understand the very basics before they integrate us into Gen Pop, if you will. You know, it was a second quarter, we got to be in the whole population and you're interacting with older kids. Well, as they're teaching us, they had this film strip with nursery rhymes to teach you the alphabet. And we reached the letter M. Who remembers with film strips? Right, so you got the, it's playing the tape, it hits a beep, you go to the next slide, or it's not even a slide, but the next image. So it goes along with the description. And it's about this mule named Milton. And the nursery rhyme went like this: Milton the mule, he made a mistake. As he read a map, he walked in a lake. And it had this thing of this cartoon mule walking with a map and he falls in this lake. Me being me, even at 6 years old, I decided I was going to make up a different limerick. And the girl sitting next to me was my neighbor. I knew her since we were 2 years old. I leaned over, thought I was funny, and said, Milton the mule, he made a mistake. As he read a map, he pissed in a bucket. Really stupid, but it was funny for a 6-year-old. My teacher heard that. The little girl laughed. She grabbed us both by the earlobes, took us to her husband's office, very big office. He was a very big man. We sat in these chairs across from his desk that were massive chairs compared to us, and I had to recite the limerick back to him. He's leaning on his desk. He didn't say anything when I was done. He turned around, he grabbed this aircraft aluminum briefcase, sets it on his desk, dials in a code, ceremoniously opens it, turns it for me to see its contents. It's got a padded interior with a paddle sitting within it. And that padded interior was cut out to house this ornate paddle. He made us both stand up, turn around, whooped our asses. Now, I've taken a better beating from my dad. My dad's an Irishman. He didn't tolerate any shit. And so every day when he'd come home, I got my ass whooped, not for what he knew, but for probably what I knew that he didn't know yet. So I knew I was going to get a serious beating that night from Pop because I just got my ass whooped by the principal. And he always told me, you go to the principal's office, then you got to deal with me afterwards. So the beating I got was not so big deal, but the tears still flowed because I knew that because of the gravity of the scenario. Now, the reason I share this story is how many letters are in the English language? I'm hearing 20 what? 28? 26? 26? Okay. I thought 24. I had to Google that shit. There we go. So it's 26, right? 26. How many do you think I remember the limerick for? 1. Why? Because I got my ass beat, right? That's how we learn as humans. You've got to take an ass whooping to learn. Right now, you're getting an ass whooping whether you want it or not. I didn't want it. I just wanted to be funny, right? And I got my ass kicked. 42 years later, I still remember with great clarity every word of that nursery rhyme. I looked it up. It took me a while to find it. It's on Google. You can find that Milton the Mule shit. In fact, I should have it up here so you guys can see it. I didn't look at any of the other ones because I didn't care. They don't matter. I don't want to refresh my memory on the other ones. I want to retain that clarity on the one lesson that I learned in life very early, that you have to take a beating to understand what it is you need to know and what you need to learn. What did I learn from that? Keep your full mouth shut when you're sitting around a teacher within earshot, right? So then as you go on through life, we went in there to here to Utah, went to Manti High School. We had a cattle ranch, but we run 500 head a year. It was an awesome experience. And there was another opportunity to get my ass kicked. And my pop turned over the keys to the ranch from me because where it works in the cattle world, you got to sell them to make money, but it costs you a shit ton of money to get to that point. We got to a point where Pop decided to go back and do some road work. He's done mining and road contracting for years. So he went back to do some road work as a supervisor while I ran things at the ranch while it was kind of slow, just feeding the cattle and keeping them alive. Well, some things happened that I had to make a decision. I'm 17 years old. I don't know jack shit about cattle ranching other than what I've learned from my pop. So I had to make a decision. I made a decision. And it didn't work out really, really well for my decision, but I was going on my limited experience. When I met up with my dad, I had to explain to him what I did and why. The coolest thing happened is he paused. We talked it through, he explained what he would do, then he put his arm around me. He goes, I'm glad you made a decision. Because not making a decision is more detrimental than doing something. So another lesson was learned there. No matter what's going on in front of you, because it could have gone really, really bad out there if I didn't do anything. I had to make a decision. Now, it wasn't the worst decision I could have made. The absolute worst decision would have been indecision. Then there were several other decisions that I could have done that would have really been even worse than indecision, possibly. But I learned right then, you got to keep your ass moving. no matter what's happening, you got to move, you got to make a decision, you got to act. Because it wasn't just deciding something, then I actually had to put my decision into action and do something there. So that was another thing that I'd learned. Another thing that I learned about business and life is I learned I'm not a good student whatsoever. Now, I mean, a graduating class of 87, you're not, I mean, I think you're going to learn so much in a place like Manti High. But what I did learn is what doors you could pick the lock of very easily. And one of them happened to be where they keep all the math tests. So I figured out who worked in the office that was a friend of mine that I could influence. I figured out how to get into that room, figured out where they kept all the answer keys, and I was able to arrange ways to get copies, get them shrunk, and I could sell them, I can trade them for homework, and I can trade them for attendance. So I spent 2.5 years of my high school career snowboarding, hunting, and four-wheeling. I did make it back for auto shop, ceramics, and my aid periods. That's it. The rest of it, I dicked off all through high school. I developed a business. I learned how to influence people. I learned how to interact with people. Another lesson that I gained. What I didn't learn is that, well, I guess if I was in a world like today, I tried that now, they'd probably put me in jail for the stuff that I was doing. So I got to understand that when it came to education, a greater education in my world was understanding how to work with people and how to influence people to work with you and get them what they needed so I can get what I needed. What did they need? They needed to be able to pass those math tests. What I need to go hunting, I need to go snowboarding, I need to go four-wheeling. That's what I needed. So where it got out of hand was one time we're sitting and doing a math test, and I got like a 92, and one of the guys I had supplied, his name is Tyler, he got 100. You got to know Tyler. My teacher said, wait a minute, there's no way you two idiots did that well on the test. So he pulled us aside, and you had these two offices next to each other. He stuck us in those offices and said, retake the exact same test you just took. I got like a 57, Tyler got like a 12. And I'm not kidding. He says, I have no idea how you guys pulled this off, but I'll split the difference with you, because he couldn't figure it out. I still passed, Tyler still failed. So you got to know who you're dealing with. You don't just trust anybody with what you've got going on. That was another thing I learned very, very quickly. You got to be cautious who you bring into your world. Even though I was already doing some dishonest crap, but I couldn't put people like Tyler into my world because now he knew. He had knowledge, and he was doing it the wrong way. I had to educate him. Now he was already in the circles. I had to educate him on how to take a test so we don't get caught. On from that, I get into the industry. And this was really, really interesting thing. I don't know how you guys got into it, but I was at an event about 4 years ago. There was a guy who was up there speaking. He was talking about his time in the crash. And he said he was a loan originator in the mortgage industry. He says, one thing you learned about becoming a loan originator, he says, because you can't get a job doing anything else. And it's the truth. I don't know about you guys, but that's the truth for me. So when I left cattle ranching halfway through my senior year, I have no idea how I worked it out. I was able to graduate halfway through. I have no idea what got engineered. Maybe somebody did some backroom stuff for me, helped me out, but I went to work in the oil fields of Wyoming. From there, I drove truck. I ran heavy equipment. I found myself in the mines of northern New Mexico, which was an amazing job. About 700 feet underground, running a Draco leg drill, drilling into ground that's never been seen by humans before, packing it full of explosives, step around the corner, blow it up, dig it out, support it again. It was an amazing job. I loved it. But they shut down that project in 1997. And I thought, well, I'll go back to Arizona. I had my wife, a 6-month-old son. I can get a job easy. Cattle ranching, welding in Wyoming, heavy equipment operator, miner, truck driver. eBay will give me a job. I'm 23 years old. I got a resume as long as my leg. The problem with that is every place I went, I kept getting this one word, overqualified. Overqualified. Who's ever heard that? It's the stupidest fucking word in the world, is it not? I'm either qualified or I'm not. But they kept giving me that crap. And I finally broke down to a point, and we're all adults, I can say that, right? Okay, making sure. I usually get a disclaimer up front. I just start talking. I figured if Joel gets to talk, I should be able to say anything. So, love you, dude. So I decided at this point, I went to a landscape company to drive a dump truck to haul landscape rock for $10 an hour. I was really stepping down from where I thought I would end up to go take this job. I went in with their application, but there's no way I'm not getting this stupid job. What word do you think I heard from that superintendent? Over fucking qualified again. So as I'm walking out of that it was like a contractor's trailer, and I'm wiping tears from my eyes. I go down to my truck. I was broken. I had no money, no diapers for the kid, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I'm driving away from that place, heading to a grocery store with a coupon for free diapers, because we were down to our last one that morning, and my wife was really good at finding the coupons. And as I'm driving down that road, my gas light comes on my truck, and I'd never driven it long enough to see how far I could go. So I found the first grocery store with a gas station out front, pulled up to a pump, pulled out my debit card, because the only form of payment I had. I said a quick prayer, I swiped it, and I got a decline. In my mind, the prayer was an answer. So I rifled through my truck, found a couple of dimes and nickels and whatever else, locked the door, started walking that parking lot for what seemed like a couple hours. Now, if you've ever been in that situation, it's one thing to walk by and see a quarter and just pick it up. It's another thing to need any coin you can get your hands on, to look around, see who's watching, bend down quickly and pick it up and shove it in your pocket so nobody saw you. Keep moving and keep moving until I got enough change to get 2 gallons of gas. Now, lucky it was 97, 89 cents a gallon, and people still carry change, right? I couldn't pull that off today. So I got I exchanged my 2 hours of my life for 2 gallons of gas. I went into that grocery store. I found those diapers that corresponded with this coupon, and I stood in line by myself, holding one item and one form of payment. I was hoping nobody was noticing what I was doing, because it felt embarrassing. I finally got up there. I handed her my item. I gave her my form of payment, and I tried to get the hell out of there as fast as I could. And as I'm trying to get out of that grocery store with my head down, I heard my name. This guy named Keith noticed me. He called me over, and he used to do the guy who did all the dispatch work of this company. I dug swimming pools 4 years before. He asked how things were. I explained to him what I just explained to you. He goes, dude, let's go to dinner. I was like, dude, I can't afford dinner. He goes, no, I got a gift certificate for Red Lobster from a client. And it turned out he went to the mortgage industry from running that office. He was a part owner in that company, but things went bad and he left. He got in the mortgage industry, had a broker shop. He wanted to introduce me to it. So we went to Red Lobster. He talked to me and my wife about it. He slid me the card for this broker. And I said, dude, I don't know anything about mortgages. The only thing I knew is the old man, the old lady on the TV show was losing their farm to this thing called the mortgage. So it seems like an evil ass fucking thing. And it sounds like there's math involved, and you don't know how I got through math. So from there, I made the call. I talked to this guy, Scott, and he invited me to come in and interview. So I had to cut a foot off of my hair. I had to shave. My mom bought me some business-like clothes. I actually wore a frickin' polo. And I went in there to meet this guy and interview with him. They started me as a telemarketer in December of 1997. Who's done telemarketing? This is the most miserable shit I've ever done in my damn life. I'd rather risk my life underground with rocks falling on my damn head than picking up that fucking phone with a script of something I knew nothing about. It was the most miserable shit I've ever done. So I pick up that damn phone, I would talk about this stuff and pray to all things holy the guy would not ask a question. Just say you'll take the call from the loan officer when he's ready to call you, right? But I started getting better at those rejections and better until I developed 10 leads. And I went to Scott and said, hey, can I work these 10 leads? It's cool. We'll get your loan officer and he'll train you. He didn't train me for shit. He showed me how to fill out a loan app and that was it. Then took half of my first 10 deals, but that was my foot in. And I started working in that industry. And then it turned out I got an opportunity to drive truck at the same time. So I'd be 3 days driving to Sacramento and back with freight, go in the office for a day, then take off to Vegas and back and haul pesticides and come back for 2 days. So 3 days a week I'd work in the office. And that sucked. I don't know if anybody has driven an 80,000 pound rig to Sacramento before, but that's a miserable ass road. It would suck in a Tesla, watching a movie, much less in a truck in the 90s. So I got out of that. I luckily got a chance to go back to running heavy equipment. So I get up at 3 a.m., do the job site by 4, work until noon or 1, get to the office by 2 and work till 10 p.m. every day for a year, every single day. And every weekend, I'd take those calls until the rates dropped below 7%. And I was able to replace my income and prayerfully decide that I was going to go into the mortgage industry full time at the end of 1998 because I had 8 deals in the pipeline. And from there, it was just a battle after a battle after a battle, trying to keep things going. But I was able to sustain life, taking refinance calls, and then an opportunity to start working with a realtor. And it came from just being the most honest guy in the room with this guy and actually making him laugh a little bit. Next thing he gave me a shot. And then he tried to dirtbag me and make me pay half of my commission to him for every deal. And then I had parting ways with that prick. But it was all relationship building that continued to build my business up. And then 2008 happens. So Scotty and I met in 2009. No, 1999. I got a memory as long as a hangnail, guys, and I'll explain that in a minute. So 99 we met. I got a chance to go to Countrywide. The way I got there is I was recruited by North American Mortgage. Who remembers that outfit? Okay, so I got recruited by North American Mortgage. They gave me a condo project to work on. I just went in there and got to know the sales girl. Now, I don't know if she thought I was married or not married or whatever, but we ended up having a really cool rapport there. Countrywide had paid for the master policy. They got Fannie approved, everything done there, but they couldn't get the deals because I kept going in there. So they assigned it to a different branch manager. She went over there. She said, what's it going to take for us to get our deals? She goes, hire him. They gave her my card from North American. She sent me a card and a letter every week for like a year and a half. So I just let them stack up on my desk. I had this massive stack of cards from this gal, Carol Shapiro. And then North American sold to WAMU. And I was not going to go work for those pricks at all. I let them take me to St. Louis and give me the spiel, but there's no way I was going to go work there. So I opened one of those cards up, called her up, and she made me an offer to come work as a loan originator. It's like, nope, I got a team. So you have a team? Yeah, I've got a team of, I think it was like 7. I didn't have a team. I had a guy within my office named Anthony that had Scotty and a few others working for him as telemarketers. But I presented that I had this team. I went in there, I grabbed Anthony. I said, let's go over here. And I just made a quick deal with him. We went in there, we presented ourselves to this team. I was the very first sales manager with the very first satellite office in Countrywide's history because I bullshitted my way into it. And we built this up, and I quickly educated these guys as fast as I could. And Scotty and I have been together for a lot of years working together, and we made something happen there. And we were cranking. Even going into the crash of 2008, I was still making about $17,000, $18,000 a month until August 2008. I was working my ass off every day doing the mortgage thing. And that night, a buddy of mine was building a mobile strip club out of an English double-decker bus. I was doing the fabrication work for him. So I was sleeping 3-4 hours a night for a month. Like, I'm gonna get my head clear. August 8th of 2008. 8's my lucky number. So I took off, jumped on the Harley. I was gonna disappear for 3 days on that 3-day weekend. 15 minutes into my ride, 17-year-old kid not paying attention, put me into another car. So I went flipping. And who's been to Arizona in August? That's a miserable ass place in August. It's even worse to lay on the pavement in August. So at 80 plus miles an hour, I went flipping. I shattered both of my legs. This rib cage was partially crushed, collapsed lung, head injuries. The worst of it was the burns and the road rash. So as a result of that, I wake up in the hospital, and the great part is when my memory kicked in, I had a full beard. Couldn't grow a beard. There's a patch missing here. So I tore up that side of my face, it replanted. I was like, shit, I got a beard. The best part of the whole operation, right? But I got to lay there for several weeks and start to decide who's this person that's laying here. As the market's crashing all around me, I'm seeing the news, but my memory only lasted 3 minutes, so I didn't get a chance to really digest it. And then when I came out of that, everybody I knew was out of the industry. All the realtors and builders I was doing business with were wiped out. And I went home in a wheelchair. And then I started having the creditors calling. And if any of you guys were in business at that time, you remember what that was like. Constantly calling. I had an $18,000 a month nut to crack. The phone would never freaking stop. I had the blessing that you didn't have. I had a $1.7 million medical bill for the first week that I could fax them. Every time they called, say, hey, what's going on? Why aren't you paying your bills? Watch your fax. I dropped that on them, and what would they say? What can I do to help? I had something you didn't have. So I was able to make it through that in a much better way than others did. Physically, no, but financially, much better because I didn't have people crucifying me for that. I wouldn't have had to sit in your guys' seat to have to deal with what you guys had to deal with there. I was lucky. I weathered that on morphine, and I did it with that medical bill, and a memory didn't even last so I could remember it. But eventually I had to come back. When I came back, I still had the memory problem. There's only 2 realtors left that I did business with. One was my mom, And you got to know my mom. She doesn't do business with me because I'm her kid. She does business with me because I better damn well be good, or she's going to whoop my ass and take it all from me. She doesn't. She suffers no fools whatsoever. And this gal named Carolyn Irby. And what they would do is they call me up. They say, call this person. And 5 minutes later, they call me back and say, did you call that person? And I would say, what person? Grab your pen, grab your notepad, and take this down. And I would write down that lead, and I'd call that person. And when I was done with that call, I'd cross off the name. And countless times that I forget to cross off the name. I pick up my pad. Oh shit, I gotta call this person. I call them up and say, hey, this is Aaron Chapman over at, where was I? I was at Bank of America at the time. And that's like serving time for something you didn't do, working for those pricks. So I call them up and start telling them who I am. It's like, we just talked 10 minutes ago. So think about how that conversation is. The largest transaction of your life is being held by a guy who calls you back 10 minutes later and said, hey, and reintroduces himself. Then I have to tell them all about the situation. I have to explain to them what's going on and that I have this condition. And it took me staying on that pad and paper constantly for about a year before my memory started to come back. Who's ever heard of Charles, not Charles Hamill, that's in front of you, Dr. Joe Dispenza? Handful. Okay, write this name down. Write this whole thing down. You need to find and do a Google search. Well, actually, it can be a Google search, a YouTube search for Joe Dispenza, TEDx Tacoma. He's doing a TEDx talk in Tacoma, Washington. And what he does is he shows you in real time how the brain is operating and connecting the neurons with thought. Who here has had a thought, there's a brilliant idea at the moment, but then all of a sudden you get these other thoughts that kick in. It says, oh, wait a minute, you're really not that smart. You don't have that. It's going to cost a lot of money. You don't have the time. Or who you get involved to get you to help you with this project, right? And then all of a sudden the idea is gone and you can't remember the idea. You ever experienced that? What Joe explains is that, and he shows in real time with the human brain that when you have that idea, that's a neuron that connected to another neuron and the idea hit. But the problem is with your neurons is they have other wiring that's been there and it's been solidified from your old beliefs and your old thoughts. And they start kicking in and fighting that. And you start to listen to that. But if you concentrate on the new thought, what happens is there's an adhesive, an actual adhesive on each neuron that it will draw from it, whichever one is the most concentrated thought, it draws from that adhesive and it pulls from the old thoughts. And it will adhere that one to the neuron, the others will fall away. You could literally change your mind in a matter of minutes. Once you understand physiologically what's going on in your brain, you now can start to control it. So watch it and watch it several times and understand what's going on. So when you have these opportunities and these thoughts, whether it be in business or in personal life, that you focus in on it and you concentrate on it. So you can prune away those fears and those irrational ideas of what reality is when it's really not reality. That's the weaker side of your person telling you something that's not real. So understand that, and it helps you to walk your way through it. Now, I had to go through that process, not knowing what I was going through when it came to retraining my brain to think and how to concentrate. And it took me a couple of years to get to the point where I didn't need my pad anymore. The thing that pisses me off about the pad is I should have kept them. Had a stack like that, but I threw them away. Because it would have had evidence of what I had to do to get my mind back and get back into the saddle of things. Now, in 2011-ish, people came in to Arizona to buy investment real estate. They started buying it like crazy. I didn't know about this. I was working for Bank of America. Nobody's gonna come to Bank of America for investment loan. What I finally got shit full of those guys. And I had an opportunity to go work at Prime Lending. So Prime Lending, when I went over there, I was just doing your regular lender shit like everybody else does. But then when I left, I took a FHA flip with me because we couldn't do it at Bank of America. And then one of the gals when I left there says, hey, I got this FHA flip deal. I know we can't do them here. Can you take it to Prime Lending? I think they can do it. So she handed me one of those loans. I went over to Prime Lending with 2 loans in my hands. I called the seller. It happened to be the same seller on both loans. Like, hey, I got these 2 deals. FHA flips, when we start getting to work on these for you, because I was the one that the clients retained. And she says, can you do them? I said, yeah, we can do that, no problem. They said, everybody says it and everybody wants us to rewrite the contract. We'll get you a new contract in 90 days. We closed them in less than 3 weeks. So that seller called me up and says, you got to come to our office. So we went and sat down with the office. She brought in the CEO. She brought in the second in command, and we sat in their conference room. They said, what do we got to do to make sure every single person that buys from us goes through you? I'm like, anything you want. I don't give a shit. Just whatever it is, just send them all to me. I'll take care of it. Because they wanted my permission. My permission, shit, what do you want my permission for? So then we started doing that. And that was a group of people that are buying houses and rehabbing them. And then investors started coming into Arizona. I started to understand the real estate investor at that point. I started to have a conversation with them that made more sense than I'm going to buy the perfect house on the perfect street with the best kitchen and the perfect master closet. It's right by the yoga studio. I can't stand that shit. I can't identify with the emotion of buying a house. I can understand numbers and dollars and cents and numbers, even though I didn't really do numbers growing up. It made sense to me. So that was a whole different conversation. I did that a lot in 2003. So 2003 to 2007, I did a ton of investor loans coming to Arizona then too. So it was a very, very easy conversation for me. And that's where I started developing relationships with them. Once those relationships started happening, I started collecting those people. They went from Arizona to Indiana, Indiana to Texas, Texas to Missouri. And I started getting licenses in all these states. Actually, it's prime lending. I didn't need damn licenses. So I started expanding my business. It wasn't long then, and Ellen came to work at Prime Lending. I shared her with four other loan originators, right? So she was processing for 5 loan originators. I was jockeying for position on her desk with 4 other guys who are whiny assholes, right? You guys know whiny loan originators? That's why I'm not around a lot of them, right? So these guys were a pain in my ass because they're blocking my ability to get things done with Ellen. So what I do is I'd section off time and we'd go through files and we'd have a stack of them, investors. We worked together really, really closely and built a relationship. I collected another person. Well, at the end of that, what year was it? 2000, no, it was 2013, I think it was. 2012, yes, 2000, it ended 2012. The end of 2012, they decided, they merged with another company. They said, what's the riskiest loan that we do? When we look back at 2008, anybody who claimed to be an investor did what? Helped create the crash. They weren't investing, they were speculating. That and ARMs. ARMs were a big contributor to the crash and people speculating on real estate. So they thought that was really, really high risk. So what they do, they labeled every single one of my transactions as rapid acquisition or some other bullshit, and they killed them all at once. I had 32 loans ready to close, all dead in one day. And I kept asking for explanations and nobody gave me an explanation. So at that point, what I had to do is I took every single loan in every state. I got a hold of the best real estate investment loan originator in those states, because I knew a lot of these guys since I was in those circles, and I'd hand them those completely done underwritten loans. And I stayed in contact with the client. I closed all 32 loans and never pulled a damn dime out of it. Those guys got paid and they didn't do jack shit on those loans. I had to do every bit of it. All the communication, all the passing of the data, the whole works. Until I found another place to go and hang, and I had to get a license. So I went to a place called Cherry Creek Mortgage. Have you guys ever heard of those pricks? Don't ever go. They love to talk about Christian shit and then they want to put their hand in your pocket. So I went over there because I knew people there. And I ended up having to fight through a bunch of stuff with them. Luckily, they got fired and it was just me and Ellen by ourselves. And we just cranked by ourselves. And let's just say there were some rougher times in there, but we were growing our business as a result of it. But the one thing that kept my business alive was when I got to places where I'd see these people face to face that were the sellers of these loans. They said, we'll never forget your name because you're the guy that kept getting it done, even though you weren't getting paid. They said, every time that's ever happened, the other loan originators wipe their hands and say, hey, I'm not in the deal anymore, because you never gave up. You ensured our deals closed for our benefit. For that, you have our trust. And I still do business with those guys even today. I was just on their YouTube show. And it's amazing how those relationships are solidified when you're giving something that's not to benefit you. So no matter what the situation is, no matter what happens, if you can't do it, you ride that damn thing all the way through, no matter what happens, to ensure that everybody else is taken care of. It's never about you, never has been about you. The second you make it about you is the second you lose. So we get over there, and then I had an opportunity to come to SecurityNaitonal. How did I have that opportunity? Who remembers the name Steve Bighouse? Anybody remember that name? Okay, so there's 3 people in here that remember that name. 4. Well, some of my team remembers it. I'll introduce these guys here, all of them here in a little bit. So he was a competitor of mine. I was speaking at an event. And when I'm speaking at an event and I'm on stage with other loan originators, I got to make sure that nobody remembers their name. So that's where I got to be me in a big, big way. So that way they completely drowns their asses out. And so there was a situation, I still have plenty of time. So I'll share with you guys another way that you have to go about your business. So while I was at Cherry Creek, I had a loan I was doing, 4 loans I was doing for one guy. He worked for Microsoft. He made, I would think like $600,000 a year, had nearly $1 million in cash in the bank. I'm doing these 4 loans for him, and they wanted to deny all the loans for rapid acquisition because he didn't have very many investment properties. I'm like, rapid acquisition, where the hell are you pulling that? It's not even in the guidelines anymore. Never what really was in the guidelines. It was like an underwriting criteria crap or whatever. I can't remember what it was. But the head of underwriting at corporate wanted to deny these deals, and they what they did is they just went in and they clicked withdrawn on all of them in the system. When I looked them up, they're withdrawn. So I called up Neil and said, Neil, do you withdraw your loans and go somewhere else? He goes, no, you're still working on it. What the hell? So we got to dig and we find out it was the head of underwriting who clicked withdrawn because they didn't have the balls to tell me they were going to try and decline him because they didn't have the ability to decline him. So I pushed to try and talk to her, and everybody locally was blocking me, wouldn't let me talk to her. They said, just accept it. I wouldn't accept it. I was pissed. So I was heading to the office one day. I was heading to my boss's office. And on my way there, I wasn't thinking straight. I missed my exit on the freeway. I'm driving around. I was cotton mouth thirsty, and I was pissed. Saw Walgreens, pulled up to Walgreens to just get a green tea or something. And in my anger, I'm wandering the aisles, and I start to see things that kind of made sense. I start grabbing these things off the shelves, throwing in my basket. Then I finally got my green tea. I went to the checkout line. I asked for a brown paper bag, stuffed all these things in the brown paper bag, went to my office, grabbed the Fannie Mae guideline manual, shoved it into the bag, and I went to her office. I walked in there, just set that paper bag down. She goes, what is this? I didn't say shit. I just reached in and pulled it out. Pulled out the guideline manual, a roll of duct tape, a Zippo, a razor knife, a bottle of Jim Beam, and 2 condoms. Well, her next reaction is, what is all this? So we're going to figure out this transaction using one of these items. I'm going to let you pick. Interestingly enough, she chose the guideline manual, of course, which is what you want them to do, right? You steer them to where you want to go. That's what you do in negotiation. You steer people to the outcome that you're seeking. So we went through the guideline manual. We saw that we pulled up the write-up that the underwriter gave. We pulled up the notes that the head of underwriting put. We went through it and I said, where does it say anything about that in underwriting guidelines? Nothing. She got on the phone. We had all 4 approved in 4 hours. Why? Because I changed the narrative. I changed the thought process. So I was talking about how I was at that event speaking with Steve. Somebody asked, how's things in the underwriting world right now? Because this was 2014, right? It was still iffy on turnkey investments. I let Steve do his spiel, and this other gal named Shaylee, who was also very, very well known in the investor space, do her spiel. She's like a nun with a ruler. She's very, very, very direct. And then it was my turn. I happened to have that bag with me. So you guys mind if I tell a story? So I told the story, and I got all the pieces out. And these 2 are back here like, there's no way in hell you did that. I'm like, sure as shit did. So after that part of the presentation is question time, right? This guy, Kenny Dang, just jumping up and down. I'm like, what's going on, Kenny? He goes, what you do if she choose condom? So like, I would recommend the bourbon too. And from then on, nobody ever forgot who I was in any of those events. I'd walk in, they'd talk about the bag every single time. Why? Because you go about it differently than anybody else. Anybody can get up there and spout guidelines. Anybody can talk about what it's like to be a loan originator or buy investment properties. How many people go up there and really flip your head upside down and make you think about it, right? It also told them another thing. When it comes to your transaction, I'm going to go to lengths way beyond any other sumbitch to get your deal done if I believe in it. If I don't believe in it, there's no reason to do it. We're not going to risk our lives. I mean, our lives, but our careers. Actually, your life, get your ass put in jail. I had an employee of mine who just got out of prison about 2 years ago. She had a 25-year sentence for fraud. And she worked for me while she was committing it. And she worked with Scotty while she was committing it, right under our damn nose. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Never push the envelope whatsoever. But if you believe in it, you dig in, you get out the condoms and say, we're going to figure this sumbitch out. Period. And you prove to your clients that you're willing to do whatever it takes if you believe in it and it's right. Underwriters are humans too. It's a matter of their experience. And not of them got to experience the turnkey real estate investor. So because of that, how I was interacting with these people, and I was doing business with him. Steve decided at one point in January of 2015, he sat down with me at one of these events. He goes, we should merge our businesses. I kind of pushed it off and whatever, didn't think about it. But Steve was a friend. I'd call him anytime there was something going on with a loan that I didn't understand. The guy's, he was 60, what? He was 60 old, right? This is Nicole, by the way. She was working with Steve. That's how I met Nicole. She was working directly in Steve's office in Everett, Washington. And so I would call him when there was a deal that I had issues with, and I'd get his take on it, and he would graciously give me a way to figure it out. So in a way, he was somewhat of a mentor. So I called him, it was about 3 weeks later, about a deal I was in the middle of, and like, how do we handle this? He walked me through it. He goes, I was really serious about what I talked about. So what'd you talk about? He goes, us merging our businesses. I'm like, well, I really didn't pay attention. Well, tell me what that looks like. So then he starts talking about it. He says, you need to come to Utah. I had just had shoulder surgery on the side, and I had all the hardware taken out of my left leg from the accident finally, because my orthopedic surgeon who put it all in didn't want to take it out because it's a pain in the ass. But I have a friend who was an orthopedic surgeon who rebuilt the shoulder and then pulled that out for me. So I had a cane and a sling. Looked like a bad chicken plate, right? A bad leg and a bad wing. But he insisted that I flew up there. So I flew up there like that. I'm walking the halls of the old corporate and the Draper office and into Paul's office to talk about what it looks like to come to work at SecurityNaitonal with Steve and his team. So Ellen was with me at the time. We merged in, became part of that team in April of 2015. And things were going very, very, very well. When I was looking at the numbers, we were up 75% from where it was before I came aboard. November 1st, 2015, Steve decided it wasn't working. He took everything and had to start over again at zero. Because you can only put the names under the loans under one person's name. Just his was already in the system. We put it under his. We had an agreement. I trusted him. He was always backing me up. I'm not trying to shit on the man. That's just what he chose to do. That was his choice. He felt that that was justified in doing it. But here's the one thing that was said there that really bothered me the most, and this is what I'm going to offer to you guys. When I asked him why, he had one thing to justify it. Nothing personal, just business. Have you guys ever said that before? You guys ever heard it before, said to you? You know where it comes from? Who said it first? Any guesses? I've heard people say P.T. Barnum, heard him say Rockefeller. It's actually said by a guy named Otto Berman, is the one who has basically credited with that particular phrase. He was a accountant for the mob back in the 1930s. And when he showed up to wherever he would go, he brought a couple guys with him, a couple pipe hitters with him, and he would come in there to collect with the numbers that he had, and that was the thing that he would say. He had turned those guys loose on. What I've determined in my career is that they're being said is because there's no set of words in the English language you can string together to justify the chicken shit that's about to go down. Because to me, it's the most chicken shit phrase you can ever use. Because if you can't justify your actions and that's what you need, then that's all you are. So we had to start over at zero. I had Ellen with me at the time, a gal named Carla, and Aaron. We sat down in our office. I got a call from Tom Gledhill, and he told me, you're probably gonna have to let your girls go. You're starting over at zero. I said, give me 90 days. I said, what are you gonna do in 90 days? I said, we'll see you in 90 days. And I pulled him in my office, sat around my little round table, and we started figuring out what's gonna happen the next time that phone rings. Just because he took everything doesn't mean people don't know my name. I've been at this for years. The phone's gonna ring, the email's gonna ding. I'm gonna have somebody ask me, hey, we need to get financed. So what are we gonna do? Who's read the book about The Goal by Eli Goldratt? Ever heard of it? Write that shit down. The Goal. Phenomenal book, right? It's about the theory of constraints. What it means is you can only move at the speed of your tightest bottleneck. What's the tightest bottleneck in lending? Processing. Is it not? There's a lot of shit that's got to be gathered by somebody to fit into all that to go back into underwriting. That is the tightest bottleneck in our process. Would you agree? So I've got Cami Decker over here who's running all my processing. Ellen was my processor overseeing processing. Got Ann over here who is one of my processors. Would you agree? Yes. Brittany, charge of my funding. Would you agree? Everything else can move pretty quickly, but processing is the tightest bottleneck. And in that book, it talks about how to make your operations move faster with bottlenecks. So one of the bottlenecks it talked about, it's a story about business, and it talks about a manufacturing plant. And what they're doing is a manufacturing, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, is aircraft parts, something like that. I could be wrong. They're manufacturing shit, okay? They got CNC machines and got robots, and they only move at one speed. You can't move them any faster, you'll break them. So they set their speed and they just move. There's a guy that got, the story is about a guy who got promoted to go to this one factory and see why it's the lowest producing factory in the entire company. Well, he walks in, he's watching the assembly line, and everything's going the way it should, but at the very end, there's a pile of parts that never shipped. Why have these not shipped? So, in the quality control process, we found there was a flaw in the raw material. That means they put all their energy and time into something that should never ever been worked on. So he got thinking, how do we change this? Well, in the quality control process, there's an X-ray machine that looks at the completed part. Well, let's put one of those at the front end to make sure we never work on something we should never work on. Why would we do that? So when you requisition for this additional X-ray machine, what did corporate say? Hell no, that's a big expense for something that's not even producing. He goes, give me 90 days. So they got that X-ray machine up there. They looked at every piece of material before they started on, and they never wasted their bottleneck time on something that was not going to work. So when we're sitting around that table, what are we going to do? Ellen was the most experienced person on my team. Ellen was the smartest person on my damn team. So what do I have Ellen doing? The prequals. Start looking at the prequals and looking at these before we get started. I'm only so good at that shit because I'm going Mach 2 with my scalp on fire, right? And we as loan originators are really bad at looking at the details, right? We fly by a credit report and an application at Mach 2 with our scalps on fire, and we don't even look at the shit. It's like, oh, let's see if this sticks. We just keep throwing crap in all the damn time. I keep looking at you, but I'm not saying you're that shit. And if it is you, change it. Quit that shit. So we keep doing that crap, and what ends up happening? We get 3/4 of the way through the deal. It's the last week before closing, and what are we doing? Oh, that asshole underwriter, they want this paperwork. They're such pricks over there in the underwriting department. They're always asking for shit, and they're blaming them. Blame yourself. You need to understand everything there is to know about the processing part of it, the underwriting part of it, and never, ever, ever send another part through your process that can't get done. You never send a flawed piece of material through your process. All you're doing is slowing down for you and everybody else around you. Now, it's still going to happen, right? Borrowers love to buy a Mercedes the week before closing, right? They love to bullshit you on what they really do, but it's very rare. I would say, maybe 3 or 4% of our deals have that problem because we put systems in place up front to ensure we never work on something that we shouldn't be working on. Never waste those resources. They're precious. So we stopped wasting those resources back in 2015. And that's where it all started. So in August of 2016, I'm standing at a region meeting, and every branch manager has to do a presentation, and everybody's in there, including Steve. And they come up to me and say, we want you to present last because we want you to drive the points home. So I got to present last. And I was in there before the presentation started. Scott Quist was there to talk to the region. And he said, we have 9 of the top, he said, we had 6 of the top 10 producers in this room. And then all of a sudden, somebody come up and whispered his ear. He goes, no, we got 7 of the top 10. He turns and looked, that was number 9. Like, how the hell did that happen? In about 8 months, we got into the top 10. Steve was still in the number 1 spot, but I was in the top 10. And then I got to do my presentation later, and I got to ask who's ever used nothing personal, just business in that room. It was one of the sweetest things in the world to be able to have that conversation you just had with you about that particular phrase. Now, anybody who remembers Steve, white hair, red ass face with white hair. Now, the best part of that whole thing, again, not to show him, I got to shake his hand. I had to give him a hug and see how he was doing. Right? But I got to drive home the point. Say, guys, we don't act like that with others. You treat everybody a certain way. And even talking about that way, I feel bad even saying it because this is nothing a knock on the man. He did what was best for him at the time. I don't even know what he's doing these days, but that was part of the experience that I went through to get to where I'm at. And the reason I bring that up, because that was a serious ass whooping, an extreme ass whooping to have to start over again for the 3rd time in my career, starting over at 0. And some of you may be there right now. All that means is whatever you're doing before has to change a little bit so you can do better on the next round. The next round's coming. It's right around the damn corner. We're going to be hanging on by the skin of our ass, I guarantee it. But look at your systems, look at what you do, look at the things that you were operating with, and change where you need to change. What I was able to take from that is I got an opportunity to see what under the hood of what he was doing. He was doing some amazing stuff. But I would take from that, plus what I learned from the goal, and tweak it. And within a short window of time, we're number one in the company. We retained that spot since the end of 2016 till now. Now, if you guys are looking at the leaderboard right now, you're like, is this guy going to be hanging on? We've got to get the shit kicked out of us too, because we need to learn where our systems are flawed for today's market. So we spent the last, how many months? Since July, seeing that this was coming as a team, right? There's something within that book, The Goal, where it had is that my time? I still have some time. So within the book, The Goal, there's a quote from the CEO of Toyota, where he talks about Toyota itself being like a stream bed. Your company is a stream bed. And the water that flows through it is your productivity, your profit, and really your business. And what he says, naturally, stream beds will get big rocks in it, get dips, valleys, humps in it. And what happens when the water hits those particular areas, it's a barrier for your flow, and it'll back up a little bit and overflow at that point. And that's where you're losing productivity, you're losing profit, you're losing business right there. So what he encourages you to do is dam up your business every now and again to bring the water level down so you can see where the big rocks are, see where the humps are, and you can clean it out, make it smooth so you can flow more with less. Much more productive, much more capable, and a lot less stressed. But these last few years, had we had the capability to do that? No, it was insanity. I wanted so badly to be able to dam it up and slow some things down and see where we're, but the second if I dammed that up, that would hit that dam, would cut new channels for other loan originators to win and take my business from me. Hell with that shit. I was not going to let it happen. I just kept adding people and adding people and adding people. Band-aided the hell out of our business. Just kept stuffing things into holes, all we could. Now we saw this coming this last year. So what we did is I hired a consulting team and went through all of it. Built our process down to every single button that gets pushed from the second somebody calls all the way to funding. Everybody's job is defined. Every person knows what their role is, and they know exactly how to do that role, all the way down to the actual keystrokes on the keyboard. They gave us the opportunity to do that. Now, to me, it was a blessing that the market slowed down. I could do exactly what I wanted to do, but now it's built, so you can go back up now. Kind of done with this shit, right? We still got to pay bills. So that is a huge benefit. If you're a little bit slow right now, look at your systems. Look at what it is that you may have experienced during it. Put your mind back in those fast-paced times. What did you hate about the fast-paced times? What was beating your ass? Look closely at that and start figuring out what do you need to do in your daily routine. Who has a daily routine? A handful here. What does it consist of? I saw your hand first. No, it's okay. Okay. What time do you wake up? Good for you. What time do you guys wake up? Let's throw out numbers. 5. Okay, cool. I wake up at 4:30, not much earlier than you guys. So I've got this philosophy that there's this big ominous foot just waiting to kick your ass all day, every day. In my belief, it wakes up at 7:30. So I get up 3 hours before the foot. So that some bitch can't catch me, right? So I always believe you got to wake up way before the foot, well in advance of the foot, because it's faster than you. It will still catch you. Hey, Cheryl. I know. You walk in here, I'm going to call your ass out. So you guys don't know Cheryl. Freaking love Cheryl. So I have a routine. I get up every single morning, go to prayer. And then I open up Darren Hardy's email, the Darren Daily thing. I write a message to my team first thing. So 4:30 every morning, unless for some reason I don't wake up. There's those days, right? And I will send them the message from my perspective of what I got out of that message and how it influences us as a team. And I'll send that out. Then I start reading. I'll go to scripture, then I'll go to something else. You guys all have this right here, a master key system. The to me, the greatest book ever written outside of scripture itself. I don't care what you've ever seen, but this book will change your existence. So I would encourage you guys to start that morning routine now and make this part of it. And what this is, it was a correspondence course created in 1910. Who's heard of Napoleon Hill? A lot of you. There's a lot of you that have not. Find that sumbitch and read his books. There's a book called, what he's most famous for is Think and Grow Rich. But what Outwitting the Devil, I believe, was his greatest work. So Think and Grow Rich, who knows who Andrew Carnegie is? Carnegie Hall, he was the wealthiest man on the planet back in the 1800s, steel mills. He sold everything to JP Morgan, became the wealthiest man on the planet. So he had an opportunity to get, Napoleon Hill had an opportunity to interview him as a freelance journalist. And during that interview, Carnegie decided he really liked this kid. He was in his early 20s. He said, I'm going to open every door to every successful person, president, king, whatever, because you're the richest man in the world, you know everybody. He said, I want you to interview them and write the practical guide for success. After 2,000 interviews, it took him, I believe, 30 years to create the practical guide for success. And that's what Think and Grow Rich is. But he didn't publish one interview in there. And this is for you to decide whether or not he had this interview. In his book, Outwitting the Devil, which he wrote in the 1930s and stuck it in a vault, is the transcript of his interview with Satan himself. And in that interview, he got to discover how it is Satan can claim he can control 98% of the population. 2% he can't control. And he said he influences them to drift, meaning they can't concentrate on any one thing. They can't focus. So he can lead them wherever the hell he wants and causes them to drift, just pushing them around. Well, what he refers to a lot is the master key in all his writing, in all his talking, and it's this. What this is, in this correspondence course, is you would pay for it, and every week you get a new lesson. And that's every chapter in this book. And what that lesson is it tells you how to basically concentrate. And it takes you slowly from just learning how to sit still to be able to direct your mind after 24 lessons. So you'll read the chapter every day for a week, and after every time you read, you'll do the lesson or at least the exercise at the end of the chapter every day. And you start learning how to control your brain. I've been through this 8 times. You see my book, I put the date in, I got it March 20th, 2018 is when I got this book. It's been with me everywhere. It's been with me in Alaska when I'm hunting. It's been with me, it just came out of the jungles in Mexico. Some of it was wet. It rained on me when I was doing a presentation there. This thing was completely wet. But you can see in here, I've got it marked up like crazy. I've got it underlined. Every time you read it, something else will stand out because you now have advanced yourself from the last time. I've been through it 8 times. So I encourage you, there was purchased for you. Christy got it for you guys because this was one of the biggest game changers in my life. And she believes in what you're doing and wants to help change what you've got going on. And this right here will be the foundation for whatever you're going to do. So I encourage you to change your routine every morning and incorporate this as part of it. If it means get up a half hour earlier, get up a half hour freaking earlier. It only takes you about 15, 20 minutes a day. And in the next 24 weeks, you will not be the same person when it's done. If you are, you didn't do the shit right. You got to go over and do it again. So that right there is a massive change in my life to incorporate a morning routine. And then after the reading, I go and I work out. Now, I don't know if you guys are happy with where you sit these days physically, but maybe something you want to start looking at if you're not, because it's a game changer right there. I stand in front of you right now, 181 pounds. A year ago, I was 212. I had every excuse in the world why I was not working out the way that I should. I had 2 torn shoulders. I shattered both of my legs. I crushed the shit out of all kinds of things. I had a bicep reattached about 1.5 years ago. So I had all these excuses. I decided November of last year, after I finished my rehab, I could finally do a push-up. I was not going to use excuse ever again. And now I feel 1,000 times better. The problem is the market's shit. I feel good, but I'm fighting this damn market out there, right? So, but I got all that done while the market was rougher, right? Focus on what you can focus on and start changing your world. This starts when you wake up. You start intentionally going about your day. The reason I take those 3 hours before everybody else starts getting going, because I own those 3 hours. Nobody else does. How often do you feel like the day is being owned by everybody else? Everybody owns your ass. Take the time when they can't. Shut off your phone or silence it and ignore the damn thing. is do what you need to do and do it every single day with regularity and never, ever, ever miss one. Stay in that habit. And you'll see within that 6, 8 months, it's going to take a while. Let me tell you, the journey that I went through when going from 212 to 181, there was 6 months there that it stayed exactly the freaking same. Because I have these coaches, you take a picture and send it. It's like, this is embarrassing shit. I'm taking these damn pictures, and they stayed the same. And then all of a sudden, everything changed. And in 4 months, it looked like night and day difference. So just stay with it. Stay with this. It may be hard, but stay with it every day. Every day. Now, I'm not every day on this. I'm on other things now because I've been through it 8 times. I need to go back through it again. There's never a time you can't keep going back through that. So where we sit today with this, you know, we've been through all these different lessons and all these different things that have helped influence me in my business. But what it really boils down to is to people. You got to collect people. You got to have the kind of relationship with people that they want to come back and they want to deal with you. One of the greatest lessons I learned was understanding the concept of gratitude and what it really, really does. So we have all these people talking about, you have your gratitude hour and all this kind of crap. They don't give you any idea why it works. They say it works, right? I'm a give me a reason person. Don't just tell me to do something without a reason. I had to have the experience to understand the reason. So I had a person that worked with us early on in this team. And when she came aboard, I told her, I gave her kind of a shitty salary to get started because she knew nothing about the business. I told her 90 days we'll reevaluate. So it's time to reevaluate. She did a phenomenal job. She was very good at what she did. She learned quickly. She took initiative, all these things. So I went to Tom, who was the regional at the time, and I said, we need to do something for her. And here is what I suggest. He's like, there's no way in hell. That's a 10% increase in her base and a 30% increase in her bonus. You got to prove to me she's worth that. I'm like, well, what could we get approved? He goes, maybe 3%. That's bullshit. Nobody's going to get happy about 3%, especially as shitty as their salary is now. So he said, fine, you got to prove to me that she had a contribution into your business growing. I'm like, the numbers are right there. We started at 0 6 months ago, you asshole. But I went ahead and went through the process. I went through tons of emails, tons of transactions, and saw her influence on every deal. I documented it. It took me 2 weeks, freaking hell, and I hate that crap. I built up this proposal and I handed it in. He agreed, he acquiesced. I got this approved for her. So when I brought her in, kind of feel like you're going to give your 6-year-old the bike he's been asking for. I was excited. So when I sat her down, I'd never done this kind of crap before. So I was trying to explain to her how well she did for us, how awesome she was, how she did this and this and this, and the contribution she did to the team. And then it got to the part where I got to give her what she earned. When I gave that to her, just happy as hell to finally be able to do this after all the hell I went through. She looked at me, she's like, that's it? She goes, I really thought you could do better than this. So what is your reaction? What would you say to her in that environment? Be blunt. Be blunt. Say it out there. What would you say? What's the exact freaking word you would say? Right here. He's got it right there. He's got his finger up. Ungrateful what? Yeah, that's exactly the words I had. You ungrateful little bitch was coming into my head. That's what was heading out of my mouth and I headed it off. But I wanted to say, go pack your shit and leave your car keys. You don't deserve that and walk your ass home. But I paused. I said, what do you think it was going to be? She goes, well, I don't know. I just thought it was going to be more than that. Okay, let's talk about what raises are in the job world. I started talking about 2% being normal, then 3%, what we were able to get her. It didn't work. There was always this little thing between us. And it was really frustrating me because of how she responded, I wanted to take everything from her. And I didn't like how that felt. Well, that same week, I'm exiting the road to the freeway to go to my office. And there's a guy standing there on the side of the freeway with a sign, you know the scene, right? And there's something about this guy that was different. It wasn't the same as everybody that I would see standing on the side of the road. And because of my experience back in 1997, I hid money in my truck. I was never going to have that debit card situation ever happen again. In fact, just to derail a minute, think about that debit card situation. I prayed to have my prayers answered, and they actually were in a vastly different way than I had anticipated. And if I was out there a minute longer because there was less change on the ground, I wouldn't have seen Keith. If I was out there a minute short because there's more change on the ground, I wouldn't have seen Keith. And I wouldn't be standing right here. Things are set up for a reason. You have to go through those things. So embrace those shitty situations because it's developing something being in you, character or whatever it might be. Well, in this particular scenario, I reached for that money. There was $20 sitting up there. It just wadded up. I rolled down my window. I held it out. He walks over, took the money from me, thanked me, and walked away. And he opened it up and he paused. He looks back at me. He holds it up. He goes, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" He goes, "This is $20, man." I said, "It's yours." And I put my hand out like that. He steps back to me. He grabs my hand, pulls it to his chest, and says a prayer of gratitude to God and asks for a blessing on me. And then profusely thanks me for changing his life. This is $20. How do you change a man's life with $20? But what happened in me was if I had 10 grand sitting there, I'd willingly handed it out the door to him because of how he made me feel. But yet, the same week I handed somebody $10,000 a year more in income, she spat in my face. I wanted to take it all from her. And it hit me at that time that when it comes to gratitude, it's not something between us and God. And it's not this mystical gratitude pinata. It's going to rain shit on you if you put a smile on your face. What it is, it's an economy between us. You do for somebody, it kicks in the law of reciprocity and they do for you. The second you take a check, the contract is done. So as long as you keep doing for people, they will do for you. And that's your relationship with your client. That's your relationship with the realtors. That's a relationship with builders. That's a relationship with the guy on the side of the road. That's a relationship with everybody. You need to do, not for the sake of receiving anything, but for the sake of them, and they will do back for you. And it will continue. I've never seen that guy before. I mean, that guy since. I don't know what that $20 did for his life. Apparently it did something. He's never been on that road again. But it taught me a lesson. And the lesson was I need to be grateful for every single phone call, every single person, every single thing that happens in my life. So I got into this habit in my morning routine. When I dropped a prayer, I would have the list of every name of every person referred to me and who referred them and the members of my team. I'd offer a prayer of gratitude for each person. I'd name them by name and ask a blessing upon them. And last year I got away from that. I found myself in Tibetan sound healing out in the middle of the damn jungle 4 days ago. And I was asking this question because the woman who was running this little what have you, smoke in the air and shit, asked the universe or God or what did they say, the creator or something else, source. What is it that you need? And what came to me is I got to go back. What I learned at the Dobson exit off the US 60. I need to incorporate gratitude into everything that happens. I need to be having those names in front of me. So now my assistant, a new job for her, is at the end of every day. She sends me the name of every single person that got referred that day and who referred them. So I can go back to the basics. Because it was doing that that took us to the spot that we were at. And it's doing that, I think, that's going to keep us there. So I'm going to invite all of you to do the same. Take the lesson that I learned and start incorporating that into your daily routine. Incorporate the master key system, incorporate prayer, incorporate gratitude. And I'd love to be able to come back to every single one of you and see what happens over the next year. So thank you for allowing me to spend time with you and talk with you guys and share with you a little bit of the things that I've experienced that has taken me down a really, really interesting journey. So thank you. I guess we want to do questions. Is that cool? Cool. What's that? No. She got a job, interestingly, in the industry. She went to work at Guaranteed Rate as at the call center. And when she gave me her notice, I took her to dinner and we sat down. I said, "You want to be successful at Guaranteed Rate, this is what you do." And I talked her through the process of what she does to be successful in a call center. So they're going to teach you how to communicate with people when they call in. Just let me tell you, the people who are doing that suck at it because they're working a Guaranteed Rate. Because if they were good at it, they'd be doing this shit themselves, not trying to run a call center. So when you take that call, you put your feet up on the desk, you lean back, and you have a conversation with the person. Get to know them first before you know why they're doing it. And she called me 6 months later, said she was #1 on her floor. What's that? It was Rocket. No, I guess it was Rocket. Something. She went to a call center, but it felt really good for her to call me and say, "Thank you. You made me #1 on my floor," because she listened. Now she said everybody was fighting with her on it. These guys are telling, "No, you just sit up and you do this and be professional." I said, "No, just talk to her." when you see them call, you're going to get their information, see where they're at, relate to them as fast as you can. So once I started teaching her how to communicate with people, she did very, very well. Now, I don't know what she's doing. I haven't talked to her in a long time. She's out of the mortgage industry. She's out of the industry, which a lot of people are going to shake out. It's a rough industry. Anything else? So we are really good at putting out a lot of negative shit about ourselves, and a lot of negative shit happens to you, right? So I have a firm belief that whatever you throw out there, you let the elements go to work in your behalf, whatever you're giving them to work with, right? So whatever you're throwing out there, it's going to work, and it's going to create that for you. So I got an opportunity, another story. I got time? Okay. I met this guy. Very interesting story. I was out to dinner with a buddy of mine who owns an insurance agency with our wives, and you know, we're done with dessert. And I was like, what are we gonna do now? He goes, oh, let's go crash this party. So there's a guy who has a commercial real estate company. My buddy's assistant was dating him, and he lived in these $1 million condos in the Esplanade in Arizona. If you guys ever heard of that, it's pretty, some snooty ass shit. So we drove over there. I have a lifted diesel excursion. I pulled into the parking garage, and it's all compact parking. So I had to let them out. I had to back into a parking space. I had to crawl out the back of that damn thing. And I had a case of moonshine back there. I'm like, well, it's Christmas time. So I grabbed the cherry because I don't like the cherry. We crawled out the back. We went, and you have to ring the buzzer, and they got to come down the elevator and let you in. Out walks a full-length red gown and a tuxedo with a scarf all the way to his knees. And I looked at Jack. I'm like, what the F is this? And then I see Joel look at Orinda, is her name. I could see him mouthing it. What the fuck is this? Right? Because I'm standing there in a pair of Dickies, a black Metal Militia t-shirt, and a beanie. And my beard is about yay long. We went in, let's just say the party didn't go well. He hated me. But later on, we developed a relationship. Then we went out one night. We're hanging out, and I can tell you where we're at. It was kind of interesting. Okay, you guys are now thinking of some stuff. So we went to something called the Air Sex Championship. You guys ever heard of that? Okay, so people get on stage, they put on the music, and they're pretending like they're doing something. It's freaking hilarious. So it was awesome. So at the end of it, Joel said, I'm making a deal, and I'm going to change your life. I'm like, what kind of deal? So, well, tell me about the deal. No, I can't tell you because but when I make the deal, it's going to change your life. Okay, whatever. I walk one direction, he walks the other. He turns around and he screams with both hands up, I'm going to change your life. Okay. Well, it turns out he bought Realty Executives Arizona, and he made a deal with Summit Funding to do all their lending, kind of a partnership. So he sent them Summit Funding after me. They interviewed me, had me do the background check, wanted me to fly to Sacramento, meet with the CEO, but they made me do one thing before I fly out there. I needed to write what my 5-year vision was for what I was going to accomplish in 5 years. Like, how the hell are you going to do that? I have no idea what the next 5 years is going to be. That's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. I did it anyway. So I want to go meet these guys. You know, Todd Screaman and Rick Ruby. You guys know who they are? On core coaching. Okay. I'm gonna go meet these some bitches. So I gotta write the stupid ass 5-year thing. I figured I'm gonna go balls out with this. So I wrote this thing as if I wrote myself a letter 5 years later, what my life was like and everything that I had accomplished. And I made it to where I could smell it, feel it, hear, and taste everything that was going on in front of me. I wrote the most vivid experience of my existence sitting next to the Rubicon Trail with the trail grill going, with the steak searing, and I could hear the things in the background as I'm writing myself a letter of what I had accomplished. I busted every damn thing of those in 4.5 years, even going through the restart with Steve. So that kicks ass. What did I do? 2017, I said I was doing 300 loans in 2016. I'm gonna do 600 in 2017. What did I do? Decided to write a letter to myself of 2017. I just closed on 2 lots in northern Arkansas in the Ozark Mountains. Like, I'm gonna write a vision and be sitting on my porch in my rocking chair, looking over the Ozark Mountain landscape, thinking back on 2017, those 600 transactions I closed. Who's ever seen the Missouri office here? the Missouri office for Security National. Go to my website, you'll see the Missouri office. I got a call from Tom probably about 2 weeks later, said, hey, how important is the state of Missouri to you? I looked it up on my thing. I said, that's 12% of our business. He goes, well, we just lost our brick and mortar. You've got 19 days to close out all your deals. I said, I just took on 32 new loans, a new provider a business provider out in St. Louis and another in Kansas City. How the hell am I going to pull that off? So what are you guys going to do? Oh, we're going to put an ad on Monster and on Facebook and see what we can do. I was like, can I solve the problem? I said, how are you going to do that? I said, I have a sister that lives in Missouri. She used to be in the mortgage industry. She worked with Scotty at the call center with us at Countrywide. So I called her up. Her name's Breanne. It's like Breezy. Breezor is what I call her. So you want to get licensed? Well, I haven't talked to you in 6 months, and that's you asked me, you want to get licensed? I was like, that a problem? And then she paused. She said, I just lost my job. My husband's salary barely covers our bills. And he said last night, why don't you call your brother? Of course, me being focused, I was like, so that's a yes? So I didn't understand the gravity of the situation because I was so focused on what we needed to do. So of course it's a yes. So we went up to, we paid what we needed to pay to get her through the licensing process. And it was time for her to take her test. This is 3 weeks later. And we're past the time. I need that license to go through so I can close these deals. I had multiple transactions going and people are up my ass. I'm camping at the time, I'm circling the damn fire, talking to her, talking to people. She's taking the test on Monday. Monday rolls around. It's that time. I'm waiting and the phone rings and it's her number. Finally, picked up the phone and she's crying. So I missed it by one question. You know what that means, right? So I calmed her down, even though there's a mushroom cloud. If she looked to the south, freaking pissed. I said, don't worry about it. Calm down. I'll be there on Thursday. She goes, what do you do on Thursday? I was like, I'm moving to fucking Missouri. I'll be there on Thursday. I'm leaving my wife and kids here. I'm coming to Missouri. You need to find me anything I can rent or anything I buy that is commercial. I can turn it into an office because I got to move 20 some odd licenses. So when I got there, landed with my wife and my son, drove to her house. She was coming to meet the kids. I'm like, no, get your ass in the car. She had 2 kids I'd never seen before. We took off, took me around different places, finally made a deal on a little office in the senior center for the city because her husband worked for the city. I was calm. As we're driving back to her place, Jim thought you would like this. So we stopped at this place and it's just trees. And there's these 2 kind of structures you can see they're covered in vines and trees. And we went in these 2 cabins from the 1800s. One used to be a church, a little chapel, and one was the painting studio for the pastor. Like, these are badass. Hand-hewn logs. This is freaking awesome. What do they want for it? About 180,000. Well, I called the realtor, we negotiated back and forth. They carried the note. I bought the place right then. And it was commercial. So I was very, very happy. I left, came back a couple weeks later and meet a contractor to see what it's going to take to rehab these 2 structures. And I stepped down, there's this big deck between them. I stepped down onto the deck and there's a rocking chair on the porch. Oh shit, yeah, I got a rocking chair. I went and sat down, I started rocking, then it hit me. I pulled out my notepad. 2 months and 2 days before I wrote, sitting in my rocking chair on my porch, overlooking the Ozark Mountain landscape. Where the hell do you think I was? I was in the northern Ozarks of southern Missouri, sitting in my rocking chair on my porch. Graham pulls up and I said, how did this get here? Because you weren't supposed to see that yet. I don't give a shit. Tell me how it got here. Because your wife called last week and says, make sure a rocking chair is waiting for it. So when you write these things down and you share them, ensure that you share them with people who are not going to sabotage you and not going to take from you. Make sure you share it with people who want to influence you for the better and help you. I share these things with my team all the time because these people back me up like none other. Make sure you have people around that you can trust with these kind of things. Ensure that you get there and then you work your ass off to make sure it happens. And you'd be amazed at how these things happen without you knowing it. I was not thinking of of Missouri. I was thinking Arkansas, but I didn't write down Arkansas. Very, very interesting. Now that year, we closed 686 loans. We more than doubled our production. And it wasn't from a lack of trying. We got our asses kicked that year. Who remembers CMG or who works with CMG? We had 86 loans. 86 loans with CMG. We're broking all our Memphis, Tennessee stuff there because there's so much of it. And we had multiple loans in some form of approval or closing, and they canceled all of them and sent them back. And that was October of that year. And let me just tell you, some of the people that were here sitting in front of you, right, were freaking the hell out. What are we going to do? Yes, Nicole told me with tears in her eyes. She may not want me to talk about that here. What are we going to do? So we're going to redo all of them and put them back inside here. At the time, you know, we were still trying to figure out turnkey within SecurityNaitonal, but want something, they backed me the hell up. Paul backed me up. Cheryl backed me up. They went in there and slugged it out for me, and we closed every single one of those damn loans. We communicated like crazy with our clients. We redid every deal, and we closed them all that year for 686 transactions. So what that did, what you'll understand about when you have problems like that, it brought my team together. They fought for each other to make that happen. So never take a problem as a problem. Take it as a phenomenal opportunity to kick some ass, and we did. And we earned every single one of those damn deals. I think I was answering your question when I did that. Awesome. Well, I have a book coming out. Who's heard of Robert Allen? Nobody. Shit, this is not going to be impressive. So he was Kiyosaki before Kiyosaki. If that some bitch didn't steal somebody else's story and get on Oprah, nobody would know the hell who Kiyosaki was. They'd know who Robert Allen is. So he's got a lot of bestsellers. He is right now. I finished the book. He's doing the pre edit on it, and then my brother's doing the artwork. And it's going to be the most irreverent some bitch you'll ever read in your life. But it talks about this process. And if you guys are interested, I'll funnel it through you, Christy. I'll shoot you the process that I went through. I'll shoot you the very first letter I ever wrote. And you guys can follow the same pattern. And if you want help with it, I'm open to help you. I covered it all, everything. I will swallow that wrong. It'll pass. Everything's going to pass. Yes. I just hope it passes faster than the good times did. Let's ride these good times for at least 7 years and this shit for maybe 7 days. Thank you. We still need 3 people. Right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Educate every person you get on the phone about what they're getting into, especially right now. You guys are battling arms, right? We fight it a lot because investors want cash flow. But once we start to explain to them, you don't know what's going to happen. It's like, oh no, all these other guys say that the rate's going to come down. So come down from what? You guys know what the average rate has been over since 1971? The average interest rate since 1971 for the homeowner is 7.76% since 1971. That's till now. Then we had quantitative easing starting in 2009. Do I all know what quantitative easing, right? I hope so, right? That was $8.9 trillion dumped in the market to keep rates low. From 1971 to 2009, average interest rate was 9.1. 9.1. So when you explain this to people, it's like, guys, you've got to understand where you sit right now. The majority of the foreclosures happened because people were in arms and they couldn't continue to pay that. The market moved on them and the market shifted downward. They didn't have the equity in their house to refinance and they couldn't come up with the money. Don't ever allow them to put themselves in that position. Educate them. Educate the hell out of them what's going on, because it's for them, not for you to close a 30-year fix. It's for them to not get screwed in 5, 6, 7 years. It's very dangerous to play in those games. The other thing is you got to honor your damn commitments to them. Anything you say you're going to do, you better damn well do it. Right? Not to interrupt the next question or statement, but you guys see the length of this damn thing on my face, right? For the longest time, I kept it that long because I decided I would not trim it till I learned how to walk again. That's as long as it stayed. I was going to keep it like that. By walking into an event, where a guy walks up to me and says, my beard was longer than yours yesterday because I trimmed it for the event. It's like, mine was longer than mine yesterday. I trimmed it. I said, I will not trim it till I see you again. I saw him every quarter. I didn't see that prick for 5 years. It got down to my buckle. I had to do this to buckle my pants. So I finally, I send out a YouTube thing twice a week to my database on what's going on in the market. I finally called and said, get on the damn YouTube with me, dude. And I took a knife and I hacked that damn thing off because it was a pain in my ass. But now it's a brand. I can't get rid of it. So it stays at about this length. And when I brought him on the YouTube thing, he goes, I didn't know you. I don't remember you saying that. I remember I said it. It doesn't matter what everybody else remembers. It matters what you remember. Honor every commitment that you have. Take care of the people, educate them, treat them like gold, honor your commitments. Well, I mean, he's carrying your beard, right? There we go. See what you got. Yes, sir.
Whether you're praying or you're thinking about it, it's very important. You have to say their names. It takes a little longer and shows a little bit more invested in the actual thought prayer, whatever it may be. But as of Peter July of last year, I realized how important it is to say their names.
100%. I appreciate you saying that. It keeps reiterating to me the names are everything's very, very important about that. And I think I personally, when somebody says that they said a prayer for me, I've had clients say that to me. I don't think that there's a greater act anybody can do for another human being that presents themselves before deity in your behalf. So that's why I believe we need to also participate in the greatest act we can do for those around us. And even the people you don't like. I mean, I've had to pray. I prayed a lot for Steve that nothing would happen to that guy. Honestly. Because he helped me get to a certain point. If it wasn't for him pulling the shit that he pulled, where would I be? I needed him to do what he did. And for that, I'm grateful for him. And I'll always go up and give him a hug and say thank you. Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.